Hi, everyone. Welcome to Arthritis at Home. My name is Cheryl Koehn. I work at Arthritis Consumer Experts. I'm also a person living with rheumatoid arthritis and hosting you today's episode. I am so happy to be talking to, for the second time, Carrie Barnes. Carrie is joining us here today. She, of course, is a person living with rheumatoid arthritis. And she's also a frontline healthcare worker. And these are sort of two key reasons why you're sitting in the catbird seat, Carrie. So welcome back to the program.
Thanks, Cheryl.
We're going to talk to Carrie about the COVID-19 vaccination. And I know there's a lot of buzz on social media. Should we be offered the vaccine? Should we not? Should we take it or should we not? And Carrie is going to share with us her experience of taking the COVID-19 vaccine and the things that led you up to taking that decision for yourself. So thanks so much, Carrie, again, for joining and for sharing. We're just going to get right into it. So you're a frontline healthcare worker, and obviously you're up on the priority list in terms of getting people vaccinated in Canada and really around the world because you're at high risk. Adding upon that risk is the fact that you're immunocompromised, immunosuppressed. So given that no vaccines are ever tested in people like us, right? They don't test them in pregnant or breastfeeding women. They don't test them in people who have autoimmune diseases or conditions. But yet, we're often recommended to take them or not. And in the case of the COVID-19 vaccine, there's a bit of both going around on social media. So obviously you as a frontline healthcare worker were up on the priority list. So of course you saw your appointment time, and you're like, oh no, what do I do? So share with our audience, Carrie, what you thought about when you first sort of knew that the time was being offered to you. And where did you go to get advice and to get your questions answered?
Good question. So the first thing I did was I let my manager at work know that I would like to hold my spot, but that I'd be like confirming it at a later date, just because I felt I didn't have quite enough information to make an educated decision about whether I would take it or I wouldn't.
Yeah.
And like you said, there's so much buzz. It's, and nothing in the middle, really just either please take it or don't even think about it. None of this like good information in the middle where you can really chew on it and make a good decision.
Yeah.
So our workplace had a couple of links to some government websites, mostly the Ministry of Health of Ontario, which is the province I live in.
Yep.
And as part of that was the consent form. You have to sign a consent form to get the vaccine. And the second page of the consent form actually indicates that it's not advised for someone who's breastfeeding and pregnant and immunocompromised. So that was a little disconcerting, to be quite honest. And I really wasn't sure where to go with that. I felt like if the Ministry of Health was telling me maybe hold off, then maybe I should. Now I have a very good relationship with my rheumatologist, and we've had, it's been over 10 years. So we've had a lot of back and forth about a lot of different things. So I felt I could reach out to him in his office. So I chose to go that route. Stayed off social media because you really can't be sure where the source of that information in, whether it's an opinion or an actual like medical journal type information. So I reached out to his office and got a very quick response to say, yes, please take it. This is something we're recommending for our patients. And then he was able to actually provide me with some actually quite opposite information to what I'd been given through the Ministry of Health. So again, feeling a little bit like, oh, okay, so these are all experts in their field. What do I do now with this tension between the two? And I decided that since I'd had such a good long-standing rapport with my rheumatologist, I would take his advice and pursue the vaccine.
Yeah. You're right. There is either, it seems there's no variations of gray in between the black and white that's available.
Right.
I think it's so important to note that, people like us take the flu vaccine every year without hesitation, most people.
Yeah.
And in fact, those vaccinations aren't tested in us either.
No.
The key is it a live or is it a dead vaccine?
Right.
What specific questions, Carrie, did you ask your rheumatologist? Do you remember? Even just one or two might be helpful information for our audience.
Well, one thing I wanted to make sure of was that it wouldn't affect the timing of the other medication I take as my disease modifier. So I wanted to make sure that it was safe to take, like within a few days or a week, or what was recommended. And then just also, what are some things I could be looking for as far as maybe an adverse reaction? Would it be a different type of adverse reaction than the general public? So
That's
those were
really good. That's a smart question. Yeah.
because it's such a huge list. Well, you might have a headache and you might have this and you might have that, and like it just the whole list. And I thought, well, maybe there's something specific that I should be looking for. So
Yeah.
they were very, very helpful in giving me advice as far as side effects to look for, and which were no different than anybody else's, to be honest.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then just how to time it with my medication.
The big questions for you was really the interaction with your drugs, the
Yeah.
timing of the medications that you take, some assurance that it was safe for you to take. In other words, it's a dead vaccine, not a live vaccine.
Right.
Yeah. So then you went ahead and you got it. So you followed through with your appointment. Tell us a little bit about the experience itself. How were you feeling? Were you nervous? And what happened after you received the first dose?
I actually was nervous. I was surprised at how nervous I was. Even having the assurance that this was something that was appropriate to do, it felt, I don't know, maybe because the whole COVID thing just seems so much bigger than what I can even imagine. And the unfortunate thing is that when you fill out the consent form, you have to indicate that you are immunosuppressed, immunocompromised, that you're on medications, what medication, blah, blah, blah. So you're taken to a separate area, you're monitored a little longer. So you feel a little special. And of course, it was coworkers, because that's just how it goes when you live in a small city. And it was fine. Like, it was a good conversation. And why am I doing this? And we had a good talk about whether they were actually planning, they're giving a vaccine, but some of them actually weren't too sure they were going to be taking it themselves. So it gave me an opportunity to share a little bit about why I'm taking it. And we had a good talk.
And how did you feel after you took the first dose?
I actually didn't feel very well, to be honest.
Yeah.
I had a really bad headache. I had extreme fatigue, not just the usual RA fatigue.
Yeah.
But I was really, really tired. My joints ached. I especially felt it in my hands and feet. And I think I'm still feeling a bit in my hands. But, within 48 hours-ish, I was feeling a lot better. And had I not had the vaccine, I might think, ooh, I might need a COVID swab. But I sort of attributed it.
I think what I have heard from other people who have taken the virus, obviously from the scientists who have been in the development phase of it, and just from generally being vaccinated, it's not uncommon for those things to occur, because in fact it's somewhat a sign of a good thing. Your body is mounting a response against the inoculation, which is the way vaccinations work.
Exactly. So that's this thing. I was like, oh, I guess this is good. My body is responding to whatever I've just done. So like you said, a bit more reassuring. I mean, it wasn't pleasant, but I'm not sure it was meant to be pleasant.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they weren't serving apple pie and ice cream like they were giving a vaccine. So, I mean, what do you do, right?
There would be no resistance to vaccination then if we served apple pie and ice cream.
I have to say that I really actually, I feel quite privileged that I have the opportunity to be vaccinated. I think that like 0 of my friends are vaccinated, 0 of my family is vaccinated. And I just think, wow, like this is really great that that I have this opportunity, even besides all my health, and I don't have that many health conditions, but like It's really quite wonderful that I have this opportunity to be vaccinated. So
Yeah, that's a really nice thing to share, Carrie. Whenever you have something that is in scarce supply, which the vaccines right now are in scarce supply, it's good to know that people like yourself who have received it have considered not how lucky they are, but because you're on the front line, you're at a greater risk. Let's face it, you deserve to have the vaccine before other people in the population. All of our vulnerable people should have these, and where we have traditionally underserved populations, such as in our Indigenous communities, people of
right.
color, people who have lower socioeconomic status. All of those reasons mean they should be uh, to the nearer to the top of the list than to the bottom. So it's 1 week later. So apart from you say some lingering maybe pain or stiffness in your hands, you feel pretty much the way you did before you got it.
Yeah, I would
Yeah.
say for sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
Um, what have you been told about the second dose? So when will you go back for that? And are there any new things that they've told you to expect when you go and get the second dose?
My second dose is 3 weeks from the first one.
Yeah.
So they just said you can expect a similar type of reaction. I think everybody's is very different. Some of my coworkers who got the first one had zero reaction. Like
Yeah.
wouldn't you couldn't even tell that they'd had it. And some felt similar to how I felt. So I think it's going to be on an individual basis, which
Yeah.
I guess welcome to the world of disease, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, so I mean, maybe a little bit more prepared for what I could feel like, but I'm not concerned about the second dose, that's for
Right.
sure.
Okay. Well, that sounds pretty good. I guess by the time you get the second dose, some of the things that we've been reading in the literature is that hopefully have started to develop some immunity.
Yeah.
And that when you get the second dose, your body's not having to mount a response perhaps as big. Although, as you say, we're all snowflakes, whether you have
Yes.
chronic disease or not, we all respond somewhat differently. But traditionally, the sore arm, the
Yep.
headache, those are things I think we've heard from people not in our community who've been inoculated. That's what they're reporting. So very interesting to hear that's quite similar for you as well. Did you have, when you started to feel some of those adverse events, did you think, maybe I should call my doctor, or were you prepared for that?
I felt prepared for that.
Yeah.
I think that if I had developed like a high fever or maybe had like really swollen, like visibly swollen joints or
Yeah.
something, I think I would have then um,
Okay.
made contact, but I felt that I was fine to manage on
Yeah.
my own.
Yeah. If
Yeah.
you had, like if you thought about your journey to deciding and then having it done and now sitting here 1 week later, kind of what stands out for you? Just some high level key messages for those folks who are watching.
Well, some of my patients I work in an outpatient clinic. So some of the patients I see regularly, they ask me, have you had your vaccine? Have you had your vaccine? And they ask all the nurses. And when you say yes, they say, "Oh, I'm so glad you'll be able to
Uh,
stay here and keep caring for us," And they just think, "Oh, I wonder when I'm going to get mine." Like it's a very positive, very, very like it's a lovely interaction.
yeah.
I've had a couple of people, I posted on social media that I got my first dose, and I've had a couple of people unfriend me because they're anti-vaxxers, and that's just fine. I'm totally fine with that. And but otherwise, my family is very, very happy to know that I'm one step closer to being vaccinated, fully vaccinated, and hopefully putting this horrible mess behind us.
Yeah.
And yeah, so it's been really positive, actually.
Yeah. And I think you've brought your own mindset, you've brought positivity to the experience yourself, right? So
Mhm.
much of that does determine, at least psycho-emotionally, a positive
Right,
outcome versus maybe a less positive outcome.
right.
Yeah.
True.
Carrie, we can't thank you enough for joining us today and sharing with us your experience in getting the COVID-19 vaccine. We are so happy to hear that it sounds like your fantastic body mounted a response. We wish you the best of luck in the second dose, and maybe we'll steal a few minutes of your time and have you back to talk about once you've got your full set of armor, COVID-19 armor on. Exactly. Exactly. Folks, at the end here, we're going to share a couple of slides that will have additional information sources for you to read up a bit more about the vaccine and the latest research related to the arthritis community. So thank you once again, Carrie. Really appreciate your time. We know you've got a family to take care of now, so we're going to let you go on and do that. And to our audience, thanks for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed this episode of Arthritis at Home, and we'll see you again next week.